Well, joining us now from our Washington studio is Bill McKibben, the co-founder and chairman of the board at 350.org, an international climate campaign that works in 188 countries around the world. He's an author and environmental activist. In 1988, he wrote The End of Nature, the first book for a general audience about global warming. Bill McKibben, thanks for being there.
Well, what a pleasure to be with you.
Let's start with a statement most frequently used by climate change skeptics. The planet has stopped warming since 1998 and started to cool, actually cool, since 2003. True or false?
Completely false. The data is unfortunately abundantly clear here. Not only is the air temperature continuing to go up, but a whole slew of studies in recent months have shown that, in fact, the rate of warming in the oceans is accelerating, and of course that heat will eventually make its way back out into the atmosphere. As the scientist was quoted in your lead-in there, I think very correctly saying, even the kind of 2-degree targets that governments have set for climate change, including the Australian government, are much too high. We've not even quite raised the temperature a degree so far, and look what we've done. I mean, 80% of the summer sea ice in the Arctic is now missing. The oceans are 30% more acidic than they were 40 years ago, and because warm air holds more water vapor than cold, we've loaded the dice for drought and for flood, which y'all in Australia have seen more than your share of in recent years.
Let's just look at that figure, though. 1998 was pretty much the planet's hottest year, at least some argue that it was, since accurate temperature recordings were done. It appears there was a spike in that year, a spike in the temperature, and since then temperatures have actually gone down.
No, temperatures haven't gone down. The last decade was the warmest by far on record. 1998 was a very strong El Nino year, and so it set a new record, a record we've now broken twice, though by small margins. But in general, the pace of climate change continues unabated. Were that it were otherwise, we continue to hope that we're going to catch a break from physics at some point along the way. But so far, all you have to do is, look to the Arctic to get some sense of just how out of control things are.
Is the clear picture that you're painting, was that muddied somewhat by the new research from the team of global change researchers published this week in Nature Geoscience, that the rate of global warming is actually slowing, and that could have a dramatic impact on how hot the planet actually gets in the next 50 to 100 years?
It's hopeful news in that they say the odds of warming at the very upper end of the scale are less than some had feared. Let's hope that's true. It really would be one of the first breaks we've caught from physics. But as they say in the thing, in their paper, it makes no difference to the plight of the planet. 2 degrees, where we're going to clearly go well past on our current path, is utter catastrophe. Really, 1 degree is utter catastrophe. How many more summers do you really want like the one you just had?
Yeah, I suppose if you say quarter break from science, does that actually give us more time to get our acts together as a planet?
It doesn't. It doesn't give us more time.
For the countries around the world to actually seek some sort of unified action.
No, it doesn't give us any more time. We're still under the gun. What it does do, I think, is allow those who are working on these issues some reason for a little bit of hope. Frankly, the level of despair has been enormous, and correctly so. We're losing this fight. It's very hopeful to be able to think if we do everything we possibly can, then we're not going to avert huge problems, but maybe, if we work absolutely all out, we might be able to stay this side of complete civilization scale chaos.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point is, you say yourself, do the math, and the question arising out of this new research is, has the math changed?
No, I don't think the math's really changed at all. What we were saying when we did that, and this is math that's been validated by the World Bank and the International Energy Agency and lots of others, what we were saying was that the fossil fuel companies have in their reserves 5 times as much carbon as would be necessary to take us past 2 degrees. So it's not even close. It's not like we're in some place, as we would say in this country, in the same ballpark. I mean, these companies their business plan is by any measure not compatible with a working future for this planet. Once you know that math, and it comes from a team of financial analysts in the UK about a year ago, once you know it, then you know that if we don't make big changes soon, the end of this story is essentially written. Our job is to rewrite it, and you know, we're beginning to build that movement in Australia and around the world that can stand up to the richest industry we've ever seen.
Let's move on, because and really it's on that topic, you've been campaigning hard for educational and religious institutions, for city and state governments and other institutions that, as you say, serve the public good, to stop investing in fossil fuel companies, to disinvest. Yes. Take their money out if they are investing in them. How many companies have actually done that, have taken your advice?
Well, we have a list of 200 companies that we'd like people to divest from, the biggest carbon reserves in the world. So far, I mean, early days, but a wide variety of American institutions have begun to divest. 5 colleges and universities so far, 10 city governments, including Seattle and San Francisco. Yesterday came news that the cemetery of the city of Santa Monica in California had decided to divest its holdings. So even the dead are getting in on this act. In Australia, I was remarkably cheered to see that the Uniting Church in a big part of the country had decided to sell its coal stocks. I think that's a brave move in a country where coal barons are as powerful as they are there.
What about superannuation funds? I mean, they control vastly greater sums of investment dollars than the kind of institutions you're talking about. I mean, you're coming here, we've got a massive superannuation fund investment in Australia. Are you going to try and convince superannuation funds, amongst others, to divest?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and for 2 reasons. One is, it makes no sense to pay for your retirement by investing in companies that guarantee you won't have a planet worth retiring on. And 2, as we're increasingly finding out, this is a bad bet economically, this industry. Just yesterday, the Associated Press, the world's biggest news gathering organization, commissioned an independent study. What it showed was that if 10 years ago, with a $1 billion endowment, you'd divested from the 200 companies we're recommending, you would have made $119 million more, these are U.S. figures, $119 million more in the last 10 years. A bet on the fossil fuel industry, an investment in the fossil fuel industry, is a bet that the world will do nothing about climate change, that it'll stand idly by and watch events like the summer you've just come through and not take any serious action. If you're comfortable with that bet, both practically and morally, then by all means invest in fossil fuel. But if it makes you queasy, either financially or from the point of view that you're betting on the destruction of the planet, then I think a lot of people are going to start to move their money.
Right, the new boss of the Australian Coal Association, Nicky Williams, gave a speech in Sydney last night in which he bitterly complained that some of the country's most successful and profitable businesses, particularly their own coal industry, were being targeted by activists like yourself, and that the climate change debate has spawned, as she called it, a new morality of industrial sabotage, extremism hiding behind laudable green goals. Do you think she might have had you in mind?
Perhaps, although I'm afraid I'm not a very competent saboteur. Our only monkey wrench we want to throw in the works is this mathematical one, this scientific one. We want people to understand that, say, if the Australian coal industry goes through with its current expansion plans, the coal that it digs up and burns will fill about 1/3 of the space between us and 2 degrees. That's not okay. We can't let it happen any more than we can let the huge tar sands of Canada or the coal mines of the United States or in China or all the other places that we work.
Okay, but
we simply have to keep that underground.
Bill McKibben, we're nearly out of time. Sorry about this, but you realise you're coming to Australia, where the mining industry and the huge boom of exports to China actually kept Australia out of the global financial crisis, kept our economy going for such a long time. And what you're basically going to be arguing is stop investing in those industries which actually saved you during the global financial crisis.
Well, what I'm going to be arguing is there's a hell of a lot bigger crisis on the horizon even than the financial one. And you got a taste of it this summer, and it's a question about how many more tastes of it you want and how much more of it you want to inflict on the rest of the world. Australia is not alone in causing this problem, but it's punching above its weight because of its coal mining industry. So hopefully we can figure out how to keep it from expanding in those ways. Bill
McKibben, we'll have to leave you there. But thank you very much for taking the time to come and join us on Lateline tonight.
All right, my pleasure. Take care.
Now to the weather. Showers in Brisbane and Sydney, morning fog, and then mostly sunny in Melbourne, partly cloudy in Canberra, possible shower for Hobart and Adelaide, mostly sunny in Perth and Darwin. That's all from us. If you'd like to look back at tonight's interview with Bill McKibben or review any of Lateline's stories or transcripts, you can visit our website. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. The Business is coming up with Ticky Fullerton. Emma Alberici will be in this chair tomorrow. I'll see you again next week. Until then, good night.